Okay, I'm okay to start now, everybody. Yeah. Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Ciara Brennan, and I'm the Director of the Environmental Justice Network Ireland. And I'm here today with my colleague Caitlin McElhennan, the Research Officer at EJNI, and Clodagh Daly, who's the Director of the Community Law Mediation's Centre for Environmental Justice. That was a mouthful, but I got it all out in the end. So thank you very much for joining us today as we launch our Manual of Environmental Justice website. This is a website that CLM and EJNI have been developing for over a year. It was funded by Community Foundation Ireland's and Community Foundation Northern Ireland's All Island Fund, and we've designed it to act as a resource for communities across the island of Ireland and anyone who's engaged in environmental and social justice campaigning. And we really felt that it was important to develop this resource because there are increasing numbers of communities who are having to engage in activism and campaigning around a very significant and growing number of environmental justice issues. So what we wanted to do was to pull together a set of resources, a directory of experts, and a map to demonstrate that level of activism and campaigning that's going on. And we hope that this will be a resource that will develop as time goes on, and it is an interactive resource so people can add in resources or inputs into the directory and the map as well. So this is something that we anticipate will expand over time, and we're delighted today to be launching it. So to join us as we launch the website, we've got three speakers today. We have Niamh Guiry, who's a climate activist who advocates for socially just approach to environmental issues. Niamh's a PhD researcher at UCC School of Law and works with UCC Green Campus in a communications role. She's also here representing Not Here, Not Anywhere, which is a nationwide grassroots volunteer group campaigning to end fossil fuel exploration and the development of new fossil fuel infrastructure in Ireland. Not Here, Not Anywhere supports a just transition to renewable energy systems, both here in Ireland and around the world. We've also got Niamh O'Neill, who's an environmental campaigner and people before profit councillor in Derry and Strabane District Council. And Niamh's a member of The Gathering, which is a grassroots network of environmental and social justice campaigners across the island of Ireland. And finally, we're joined by Cormac McAleer, who's an I hope we're going to be joined by Cormac McAleer. He should be here shortly. He's an environmental campaigner and a member of Save Our Sperrins, who have a focus on anti-mining campaigning. So I'm going to hand over to Caitlin, who is going to present the key findings from a needs assessment report that we undertook in the development of this project, because we felt that it was important to find out from people who were actually going to use the manual website and the resources to see what exactly was needed in terms of the functionality of the website. So Caitlin's been working on that for the last year, and I'm going to hand over to her to do some of the key findings, and then Clodagh will present the manual website and take us on a bit of a tour of that, and then we'll have some questions and answers. So welcome Cormac as well, and I've already introduced you, so you can just wave at this point. But I'll hand over to Caitlin now, who's going to talk us through some of the key findings from our needs assessment report. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Ciara. Hi, everyone. I'm just hoping I'm able to share some of my slides. Okay. Just I have a million tabs open. Okay. Hopefully everyone can see that, but if not, that's all good. I can just talk through it anyways. But yes, so I started drafting this needs assessment report based on a consultative process through questionnaires with around, we got around 50 plus responses. Clodagh and I reached out, to both social justice organisations and key actors involved in environmental justice, from academics, campaigners, organisations, NGOs. And essentially, just to give an overview of the needs assessment report, it does present significant barriers to the ability of citizens to access environmental justice, and also problems surrounding public participation in environmental decision making, access to environmental information. And as probably many of the people in this call know, there is, an erratic compliance with environmental legal obligations. And hopefully our manual can facilitate, better cooperation on an all island, because a lot of the challenges are shared. There just seems to be a fragmentation in regards to, sharing experiences, sharing information. So hopefully our manual can provide a hub of sorts to share this. So yes, the aims of the consultation exercise was to identify existing gaps, but also it was really helpful in, we've been developing the manual for the past 11 months. So it's also guided how we want the manual to look and what are the key categories, for example, in our resource library, identifying the main environmental issues and what resources are needed. So the key findings for the social, when we engage with social justice organisations, is that there is a real, want to get involved in environmental and climate related issues, but there's, key barriers to doing this, including, under-resourced staff and time, lack of expertise, lack of consideration of intersectionality at policy level. And mainly, where to find this information, unsure of how it connects, how does environmental issues connect with social justice issues. So what supports could be useful? Our participants said, clear, accessible information demonstrating the links between environmental issues and their work, guidance on what actions their organisation can take, assistance, of course, with funding and resourcing, and contact with environmental and climate experts, which is a gap we hope we've addressed, with our expert directory, which Clodagh will show very shortly. So very quickly, because I know we're all quite eager to see the manual, we did, in regards to our environmental justice consultation, 78% of the responses cited a lack of accessibility to information and or expertise as a main obstacle to carrying out their work. For example, government bodies, when they do publish policy documents and guidance to assist communities in accessing their rights, the documents tend to be very complicated. And I've just pulled a direct quote, the summary, they don't provide enough summary guidance for lay people. An overwhelming amount of responses, there's clear issues with our current planning system. There's a severe lack of transparency and opportunity to participate in the planning process. So there's a real need, and hopefully we can address this in our manual with how-to videos and how we can help and guide people through this complex planning process. And governmental criticism dominated this, the responses. I thought it was interesting that one participant said, communities are viewed as a hindrance to be placated rather than a fully involved partner. And as I previously mentioned, there is a fragmentation of resources and knowledge. So it's, we can definitely create resources as well, we hope as the manual progresses, but also there is plenty out there. It's just about bringing it all together and making it accessible. So just this lastly, there was a lot of recommendations, and, our needs assessment report is a lot more comprehensive than what I've included on my slides here, but, and hopefully we'll publish that this week so you can get a more in-depth look. But just some insights into the recommendations that we pull directly from our responses is that, like I've said, further research into how we can help and guide people through the planning system. We need greater awareness of specific environmental issues. And I'm sure Niamh can talk about this a bit more, but there's a real lack of awareness in Ireland of the impact of, oil and mineral exploration and mining and extraction in Ireland. And how-to resources, how you can fill out AIEs, access to environment information, and resources to engage groups who have not been involved in climate discussions. We hope the manual can really encourage more people to get involved. So yeah, that's me, and I will hand it over to Clodagh now. Thank you very much. I have to stop sharing my screen. I don't know how it works. Maybe Clodagh, you can stop sharing my screen. I can't. Oh, there we go. Sorry, silly me.
No problem. Thanks so much, Caitlin, and thanks, Ciara, as well. So I just wanted to say first that a special thanks to Environmental Justice Network Ireland for undertaking this project with community law and mediation. It's been so brilliant to work on an all-island environmental justice project, and there's such need, as we've seen through Caitlin's presentation, for greater collaboration on environmental issues. Nature doesn't know any borders, so we need further collaboration, I think, in this space. It's been a really exciting project for us to work on, and we're also really grateful to the Community Foundation for Ireland for resourcing this work. So thank you for that. And thanks also to our expert speakers who we're really excited to hear from momentarily. So I'm now going to share with you the Manual for Environmental Justice. And just to kind of explain that our thinking around this is not that it should be viewed as a website, but that it should be kind of viewed more so as a digital toolkit. And you know, when we were designing this, we had in mind 3 primary groups that this toolkit would be useful for. So first of all, communities across the island of Ireland. So whether you're already involved in environmental activism or activism of any kind, be it, you know, social justice issues or otherwise, that you can come to this resource and find out what environmental groups are active in your area, how you can collaborate and get involved with those groups. And if there aren't groups working on an issue that you would like to work on, maybe you might see that you can start one yourself. You can take up an initiative yourself. The second group is that we'd like to have this website and toolkit be useful for social justice groups. So those who are already working on issues like housing and health, migrant, traveller rights, disability rights, women's rights, youth and elderly rights, who would like to come more into the environmental justice space, that we would hope that this toolkit will provide useful to you in kind of connecting your work in with the environmental justice field. And then finally, for those who are already really active in the environmental justice field, that hopefully this toolkit will help you see the breadth of work that's taking place, where the gaps lie, and where further and better collaboration can happen. So this is the toolkit. And we can take a look at the 3 kind of main features that it has. So first of all, if we take a look at resources. So just to say as well that this is very much a very new toolkit, and we are still in the process of uploading a lot of content. If you have content that you would like us to share on this, please do send it our way and send it to it afterwards. So you can also click to submit a resource here. And this will bring you to a form where you just fill out the information and then we will get it uploaded. But if you would like to just take a look around the website and explore what kind of resources we have up here, we have categorized resources. This was based on the survey that we did. So we chose these topics based on the surveys and where we saw that there was the greatest need from communities. So across these different themes of air pollution, anti-mining, all the way to just transition and waste. So if we look, for example, at environmental rights, you can select also by jurisdiction. So if you wanted to just look at, you know, what kind of resources are available on Northern Ireland in relation to environmental rights, you can narrow it down that way. And you can also search by keyword if you're looking for a resource by a particular author or organization. So within environmental rights, we have, for example, a guide to the Aarhus Convention, so explaining people's procedural environmental rights of access to information, participation and justice. We have films on the rights of nature. We have infographics explaining environmental justice. We have music videos. We have a lot of webinar recordings. So essentially what that's to say is that there are resources available for people of all knowledge levels. This isn't kind of designed to be accessible to only experts. It's intended for use by everyone who is in this sector, even if you're totally new. Then just taking a look at our advocacy map. This is what it looks like. So there's a lot of groups, as you can see, that are really active all across the island of Ireland. And I'm sure that there are groups that we haven't included on this map. And I'm really sorry if that's the case, but please do just get in touch. You can also send in a request to have your group uploaded directly to the map. And we would love if you would do that. But again, we have categorized groups across different issues. Again, that was based on the surveys that we did. And then also depending on the area of work. So, you know, whether they're a grassroots campaign, whether it's a think tank, whether it's an NGO or a public body, you can search it through all those different categories and by county as well. And just to say that for groups that are online only and don't have a physical office, so for the likes of, you know, Niamh, one of our speakers here, is involved with a really fantastic grassroots campaign called Not Here, Not Anywhere. We have included groups like this on the map, And what we've done is we have located groups without headquarter offices in public spaces like libraries, for example. That's just to make sure that you guys are included on the map, but we have included in the description that you mainly operate and communicate online where that is the case. And then finally, the expert directory. The idea behind the expert directory is to bring environmental knowledge and expertise into communities' hands. So for example, if you are living within a community and you're concerned, for example, about the number of bats in your area, and you might want to have an ecological survey undertaken, you can come onto the directory and look up what ecologists actually specialize in that field, contact them, and they might be able to signpost you to further information or help you directly themselves. So these are the experts that we've collated onto our expert directory so far. Again, if you'd like to be included in the directory, please do get in touch. So yeah, that's kind of what that looks like. And then we have a contact field as well. So if you have any suggestions or questions about the manual, and in addition, if anyone watching this at the moment has any suggestions for what they would like to see included in the manual, what we could expand on going forward, please do let us know, even, right into the chat box with any suggestions. That would be really, really helpful.
That's great, Claudia. I missed the last little bit there, but yes, thank you very much. And I think what I would add to what Claudia has said before we hear from some of our speakers is that, one of the purposes of the manual is really to identify where there are gaps in information for people as well. So, if, for example, there is a need, an emerging need for guidance on some particular aspect of the planning system, or in particular some issue. Oh, can you hear me? Good. Everybody can hear me? Yeah. Good. I think your volume. Okay, you're okay. So I think, if there was some emerging need for guidance on a particular aspect of the planning system that has become or becoming problematic, or in particular an issue that transcends the border, then we would also be open to, if people wanted to submit via the contact page ideas for resources, that would be something that, given the expert directory that we will have accumulated, that we would hopefully be in a position to be able to suggest somebody who would be able to develop that resource as well. And that's really one of the functions we want to, continue to expand upon going forward. But I think it would be a good idea now for us to hear from some of the people who might be representative of users of the website as well. So I'm going to first of all hand over to Niamh, yeah, Niamh, over to you.
Thanks, Ciara. Hi, everyone. My name is Niamh Guiry. I am doing a PhD in UCC, and as mentioned, I'm a member of Not Here, Not Anywhere. So Ciara mentioned it, but we're a nationwide grassroots group, and we're all volunteers. So we're campaigning to end fossil fuel exploration in Ireland and the development of any new fossil fuel infrastructure. Obviously, the just transition is really critical to what we're doing, and we're also a non-partisan group, meaning we're not affiliated with any political parties. So there are a range of environmental injustice issues associated with the climate crisis, and in this case, the phasing out of fossil fuels before the end of this decade, and ensuring that a just transition is achieved in Ireland is really our key focus. Not Here, Not Anywhere campaigns through a variety of mediums, and one of our biggest undertakings this year was the LNG bill. So that bill seeks to stop building of any new LNG infrastructure in Ireland. So for anyone who's unfamiliar, LNG is liquefied natural gas. It's a fossil fuel, and it's often viewed as a cleaner fossil fuel because it emits lower levels of carbon dioxide than coal when it's burned. But in reality, there's actually a range of environmental, social injustice, and health issues associated with LNG production and transportation. So unsurprisingly, fossil fuel companies are pushing to build more LNG infrastructure in Ireland, which would lock us into fossil fuel dependency and would also jeopardize our chances of keeping temperatures below that critical 1.5 degrees. So this year, Ireland's energy has never been so topical. Alongside the shocking humanitarian crisis with the Russian-Ukraine war, It has also disrupted our energy markets to a degree that hasn't been seen since the 1970s oil crisis. Lessons need to be taken from this crisis by not prioritizing a mitigation strategy depending on another fossil gas that is supply chain dependent and also thus prone to more geopolitical shocks. And increasing our availability of gas is actually would contradict our kind of national policy and also our international climate action commitments. Energy security is a significant concern at the moment, and rightly so, but multiple studies, including those by Gas Networks Ireland and EirGrid, have actually shown that our existing gas infrastructure is capable of meeting future demand, even in the event of a supply disruption. And reliance on LNG as an energy source risks increasing our economy's vulnerability to energy price volatility and leaves us more vulnerable to future geopolitical disruptions in the future. The most secure source of energy for us is indigenous renewables supported by storage. You know, there is no energy security without energy sustainability, and you can't solve a problem created by fossil fuels with more fossil fuels. We need really strong political support and momentum to facilitate the delivery of the renewable energy transition. And as well as that, we need to mobilize and we need continued strong environmental campaigning. And there are countless individuals and groups working across the island of Ireland, dedicated and campaigning for a fossil fuel-free future in Ireland. You know, I got involved with climate activism about 5 years ago, and I joined Not Here, Not Anywhere almost a year ago now. And throughout my time volunteering, the value of connections between activist groups and grassroots organizations has always been really apparent to me. You know, being able to share your knowledge, your resources and your insights with others is really critical, but also sharing what hasn't worked, you know, the problems that you've encountered and how you've overcome those issues is critical too. Having a strong network is fundamental to climate activism. And I think collaboration isn't always necessarily easy or straightforward, but it's always worthwhile. And the reason that there is a need for greater enhanced all-island collaboration around environmental justice issues and environmentalism generally is because of the ever-growing climate and biodiversity crisis combined with the continued inadequate action being taken by our political leaders. If we don't hold them accountable, then no one will. You know, if you see an environmental injustice or an environmental issue and you think, you know, someone should be doing something about this, you're somebody and you have the power to take action. And resources like this manual that's being launched here today is so valuable because it shows people, you know, how they can take action and how they can better understand these issues. And I often see the debate that kind of revolves around individual action versus kind of collective systemic change. But I think looking at it that way is misguided because it's not an either or, it's a both. We need individual action and kind of collective systemic change. And what is collective systemic change but a group of individuals coming together and demanding accountability and change. So you can read more about the LNG bill at lngfree.ie and more about our group at notherenotanywhere.com. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and congratulations on the launch of the manual today. I can't wait to see it.
Thank you very much, Niamh. And I would add as well that Not Here, Not Anywhere's details should be on our map as well. So if you need those contact details, you can just go to the map on the new website, which is really useful. So thank you very much. And I think next on our list of speakers is, I think we're at Cormac. Is it over to you or Niamh? Cormac, let's go with you first.
Okay. Good morning to everybody, and congratulations on the launch of the manual. I've been a bit distracted, and sorry for distracting you if I've been nipping off the screen because of grandchild here. I've been helping look after this morning. So just briefly comments on the needs and response to what I was asked to do was in terms of the needs of and the challenges facing campaigns and groups. And one of the difficulties is that I find this always changing. The needs, if I look at our campaign from way back when we were starting, we're in a very different place and different people are in different places. And so all the more challenging it is to get a manual that meets the needs of all and that is accessible to people at so many different levels. Because people who, if I'm thinking of people in our campaigning groups, they're busy people already. They're stretched, and they're young parents or older people. That the people who get involved are people who are active and certainly interested. Getting people engaged with groups and organizations that are more strategic is more difficult than getting involved with local groups and local groups that may be networks and maybe a useful network for people getting started up. Because knowing the basics, right? I think that for us, it would have been useful in terms of when we were getting started that we had learning available that helped people who believed that the system was working for them rather than working against them, because we wrote so many letters initially thinking that they were going to be taken seriously to the planning authorities, to the environmental authorities, to the different statutory and organizations and departments. And it was only after a period of time that we realized, hold on a wee minute, they're not about helping us protect the environment, because they see us on the other side, right? Particularly in terms of the mining and the gold mine, certainly that's what we found, that they were closer to the mining companies. These companies had got to know the key individuals at all levels, right? Including, there's a term we used or somebody came up with, local, was about being politically abandoned or abandoned by the politician. But in a way that could be also applied to the different statutory bodies and agencies. So they having access to information, having time to go through all that, and come out at the other end still with some sanity and with some energy and not completely burnt out, because so many of these campaigns are not just a one-off, they're in for the long haul. And there are how one complements and empowers those others who are also out there working in the different agencies and organizations and different individuals as well, who are on the same side as us. And there are many of those working in their own way, maybe a little way or strategic way, but who are restricted by the resourcing or the lack of resourcing available to them. So what we're looking for right now, interestingly, at our stage of the campaign, is what we see the practical help is about getting expertise that on mining, that we can, at the level that they can help us at a public inquiry, getting those experts available and having the money to pay for them, so that they as well as sustaining people, through the long haul that this campaign has been and is, and as well practically right now that with over periods of time and with the growth of conspiracy theories, etc., that it's hard to manage the cracks that appear in organizations as well, and that takes up time. And because we're all learning about this, and you want to be inclusive of everybody, that there's challenges like that, like those that are changing and developing all the time. And then again, in any campaign or in any organization, celebrating victories and having the solidarity of others is so important, right? Because that has meant so much to us, whether it's linking with the gathering and initially with Friends of the Earth, and then coming across people like Dean Blackwood and Linda, and then meeting people like me through the gathering and that sort of energy. And that's it's really important that at all those levels that that activity is sustained and developed as well and kept within the frame. But engaging at this policy level as well is so important. And how one, as it, again, the challenge of how putting that all together in a way that's accessible and not just seen as another task for already overstretched people, because engaging with a new manual can, right, if you're into it, if you're really into that and whatever, and you have the time, then it can be a great bonus and asset. How one keeps people engaging new people and keeping the people that one has on board. I think we find it difficult to manage our own wee Facebook page and our own, or keeping the organization, the needs of the organization going. That's challenge enough, but keeping the local networks, the sub-regional networks, and then at the bigger networks, and you know, that nationally the CAM network is really important too, and we see that as such an important development over the last number of months, because the pollution from mining or whatever, and the conspiracies by these mining companies doesn't stop at the border. So hopefully that the network will be seen by more and more people, and or the manual can be used well and best. I think there's mentioned in your literature about having a one-stop shop is very difficult, I think, because even when you have the record of groups that exist, like keeping that alive in terms of groups coming and people getting burnt out and going as well, that in organizations, that there's the maintenance as well as the development function is so important. And that's why having the experience of getting together, and we through the gathering up is important, as Niamh knows, that getting it, I know that Ciara at the lunch down in Derry recently, they getting people together in a different way and relaxing is so important for this too. So again, that's my reflections on the questions we were given, and inadequate as they are, I'll leave it for now this morning. Thank you and good luck with that.
Thank you so much, Cormac. And I think what you have reflected on there was something that came through very strongly in the, you know, the responses to the consultation we did for the needs assessment report, because this theme of, you know, keeping momentum going, what do you do when you know, communities involved in campaigns like this, when there's burnout? And I think also recognizing that at different stages of a campaign there are different needs, and that's something that, you know, you can't just hit people with a whole pile of information. You know, at different stages, communities might need, you know, facilitators, they might need lawyers, they might need expert witnesses, they might need, you know, counsellors, you know, they might need legal advice, you know, so there's a whole range of needs. And I think that up until now, one of the things that we sort of thought when we were designing the project was that those have been existed in sort of silos. So, you know, you've got EGNI, for example, is heavily focused on legal professionals, legal academics, CLM as well, you know, like we both done that, but we became increasingly aware that there was a need for a broader sort of connections with experts and with communities and campaigners from wider ranges beyond legal stuff, because, you know, that's just one side of it. So I agree completely with you, Cormac, that being able to help campaigners and communities, all of the hard work that goes into those campaigns, translating that into an influence on policy before people get burnt out or even after they get burnt out is something that's really important. And I think is something that we hope that the creation of this website and this toolkit really can help with. So I'm going to hand over now to Niamh, who's going to reflect for a few minutes on her thoughts about the website, about, you know, the needs of communities and campaigners. And obviously, Niamh, as a counsellor, you probably have some experience as well of how to translate, you know, the sort of the campaigns or advocacy targets of communities into that kind of policy arena. So Niamh, over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ciara, and I just want to congratulate EGNI first of all on the excellent work in developing this manual for environmental justice. I think it's like essential that we do join resources together, and I really think it's excellent that we're linking environmental justice and social justice as they are inextricably linked. And just to thank as well all the environmental campaigners who, you know, really are making a difference, and you know, it's through that hard work and dedication that will actually bring about the type of change that we really truly need in society. So as you says, my name's Niamh. I'm a local councillor, but I'm also involved in a number of environmental campaigns. And I suppose my birth into environmental campaigning was with Zero Waste Northwest, who are a group based in Derry, campaigning for a zero waste circular economy for our council region. But I'm also involved in terms of the main groups, obviously the Gathering, which is a network of campaigns, but also Into the West, which is a campaign to restore and improve rail connections into the northwest of Ireland. For anybody who doesn't know the reality that exists for rail in the northwest, just Google the Ireland railway map, and you'll see a gaping hole in the northwest. And then I'm also part of the Rights in Nature campaign. So I suppose, as Ciara says, I have a unique position as a local councillor in Derry and Strabane District Council. I was co-opted just a year and a half ago, so I'm still, I'd say, fairly new to it, but it's given me a unique perspective because I've come in as a campaigner on a number of campaigns, but you know, particularly environmental activism. And I think like I would be nothing, and you know, in council without the environmental campaigns who I'm completely informed by. You know, I lean heavily on the likes of Cormac and the Save Our Sperrins campaigns for when I, you know, speak about Dalradian or gold mining issues, and the likes of you know, Dean when it comes to planning issues, and Zero Waste Northwest, of course, when it comes to any issues about waste. So I think it's important to have activists within council who can be that direct voice for campaigns on the ground. And I think I would echo the feedback that was given on the presentation around like how citizens and ordinary people are viewed or treated within you know, decision making in a way that, you know, people are seen as a hindrance rather than, you know, an asset, and whose opinions are valued. And in the systems that we work within local government and national government aren't really designed in a way that values citizens, and particularly when it comes to planning. You know, the access of power is designed in a way for developers, and not in a way that protects people or nature, but rather manages the harm to nature. And I think, you know, as it says, for change to happen against this current access of power, it has to come from ordinary people and from communities campaigning. So just to touch on the work with Zero Waste Northwest, kind of as the main group that you know, I began with and I'm still very much a part of. Just to give just some perspective on that journey, we began as a campaign group against an incinerator that was supposed to be built just outside of Derry in 2013. It was the third attempt to build an incinerator to be our waste management solution. And, you know, as a campaign group, we knew that, you know, incineration was not just harmful to the environment, and wasn't a solution to actually managing waste, and it was also harmful to health. But in 2013, at the third attempt to stop the incinerator, we also wanted to find out what is the solution. And that's when we discovered Zero Waste, and there was a book by Paul Connett, which really informed us, and we discovered that at that time a network called Zero Waste Europe, which has really supported our work, and I think that, you know, correlates definitely to this resource, this manual, and in the way that it's a network that can really inform us and hold us up and keep us you know, motivated and the struggle to actually bring about change. And so, you know, at that time we had indicated to our local council that we will we will completely oppose them if they continue to develop an incinerator, but we will work with them if they move towards zero waste. And there was a step change at that time where the local council then abandoned plans for the incinerator, and we worked with them to develop a strategy for a zero waste circular economy, specifically for Derry and Strabane District Council. Our campaigning didn't stop there, and we've continued to campaign and lobby to ensure the proper implementation of the strategy. And I could talk more about that, but I won't. But I think kind of part of that story as well is the mismanagement of waste, which, and all these issues are all island issues. They're Europe-wide, they're worldwide issues, but I think, on an all-Ireland basis, I think it's a really good lens to look from, given our closeness and similarities. And at that time there was the discovery of an illegal landfill site called Maboy just outside of Derry as well, and this is an important part of the story because it was turned out to be the biggest illegal landfill site in Europe. And again, in the south there are similar illegal landfill sites because of the mismanagement and the corruption within waste management. And we need to look to our planning systems, our environmental regulation systems, for their absolute failure in protecting people and place and the natural world. And this landfill site is situated alongside the River Faughan, which actually supplies over 50% of the drinking water to the people in Derry. And I think, without campaigning, without people whistleblowing, without people continuing to hold authorities to account, Maboy would have been brushed under the carpet a long time ago. So it's taken the dedication of activists to ensure that this is still an issue. It's brought up monthly within our council meetings for environment and regeneration. And again, that was a call from environmental activists to ensure that it stayed on the agenda until the full remediation of the site is carried out. So I think in terms of this being an all-Ireland resource, I think it's really, really important. The Rights of Nature campaign I'm involved in and is like an all-Ireland campaign. And I just want to say well done to the achievement from Rights of Nature campaigners on the announcement yesterday about the Citizen Assembly with their recommendation to include Rights of Nature within the Constitution in Ireland. So I think that's a really massive achievement. So well done on that. But I think, this manual is essential for a resource for ordinary citizens who are leading the fight back. As Cormac said, people who find themselves within campaigning, whether it's environmental campaigning or social justice campaigning, it's not their day job. These people are grandparents, their parents, their caregivers, they have all sorts of different working backgrounds, and most people do not have any grounding or training in planning or in environmental law, and that's why having this resource and having the support from the likes of EJNI is really, really helpful in the struggle. As Cormac says as well, environmental campaigners and activists are very busy people. So joining resources is really, really essential to making to actually making the struggle a whole lot easier. And I think there's really strength in unity and strength in combining campaigns and the solidarity that brings, because the struggle is very, very hard, but to know that you're not battling alone. And there's a lot of similarities that happen within different campaigns. I think the anti-mining movement has been very much strengthened through an all-Ireland approach, because it's an all-Ireland issue, in the same way that transport is, in the same way that waste is. And I think we can only be stronger when we work together. So I just want to say well done and thank you for doing this work. It's an ongoing process, and we look forward to leaning on you and to giving support to others as well as we continue this journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Niamh, for the words of thanks. And I'd like to echo as well Niamh's congratulations to the Citizens Assembly, especially on many of the recommendations, and specifically the Rights of Nature, which we've been involved in that project as well. And just to answer a couple of points, obviously we've developed this website in collaboration with community law and mediation, and who run, you know, clinics, legal clinics for environmental justice in the south as well. That's something we don't have in the north. Maybe that's something that we could start looking into as well. But it's been really important, I think, to that collaborative process, because we've come at it from different angles. You know, I come from a classic, like an academic background, you know, as well, whereas I'm working closely with the practicing lawyers and CLM, you know, it's been really interesting to kind of, you know, develop this in jointly, you know, so that's been great. And then, so what I really wanted to do now was we've got a few questions in the chat, so to try to address some of those, and I'll put those to the panel as well. So one of them is from Pat Benson. So thanks, Pat, for your questions. So who sees a great need to have an independent person or persons to explain in plain everyman English the contents of the EPA water catchment report, so ordinary people can understand exactly what the contents mean in terms of effect or impact on our drinking water, for example. So can the group identify such persons so groups can get an education in the contents of such reports? So this is I mean, like, I think it was raised by several of our speakers earlier on as well, that the complexity of this sort of reports that have come out, and, you know, especially through consultation exercises as well, that people who are not experts are expected to understand and respond to, I think is one of the key problems. So what we would want to aspire to do going forward is that if there's a need like this has been identified, then we will then try to enhance the directory of experts by seeking out experts to respond to that need. So one of our jobs going forward in terms of the maintenance and expansion of this resource, the website and the toolkit as a resource, is that we will, you know, take that and say, right, well, what kind of expert are we looking for here? And then what exactly is needed from them to explain. So all of you water catchment report scientists out there, be warned, you will be contacted by us in the new year to respond to Pat's suggestions. So what we really need from people who users of the website, especially communities, is some indication of the types of expert knowledge that would be useful to have on this as a resource. So yeah, please keep the suggestions coming forward. And I think has anybody, any of the panel got any, or Caitlin or Claude, any responses to Pat's query to add to that?
Just to add that this is, as Ciara said, you know, this is the exact thing that we are looking for as the manual progresses, you know, this participation in you letting us know what, you know, the needs are, what information is missing or what you can't understand. I was going to send Pat a link to, it's also on our manual. It's a useful data for Irish river conservation and water quality, and it's really extensive. And it, you know, is a detailed resource that kind of addresses the fact that it's hard to access information on water quality in Ireland. So I'm not entirely sure whether that would, you know, directly break down the EPA's water catchment reports, but definitely take a look at it, because it could potentially be there. It's just a huge resource, so I haven't, you know, checked it out extensively myself, but I'll send that link now to Pat if you're listening. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin. Okay, so our next question is there a need for more all-island collaboration on environmental issues? As somebody who is one of a group of academics who's literally just finished a 160-page report on that very subject matter, I feel I may be qualified to answer that, but I don't have the time to do it right now. It was a very long report, but we are due to publish just before Christmas a report called Linking the Irish Environment, which has been undertaken in cooperation with the Irish Environmental Network and the Northern Ireland Environment Link, which talks in detail about how we might undertake more collaboration on environmental issues on the island, but also why we need to do that. Some of the reasons why we needed to do that are the risk of divergence post-Brexit, the sort of the climate and biodiversity crisis that we're dealing with now, the dominance of issues that are inherently cross-border in nature, illegal waste dumping, river pollution, water pollution, air pollution, all the pollutions. So I think, you know, that there there is almost certainly a need for better cooperation. I mean, we share an island and the environment that exists on it, and I think there has been a sort of sense that collaboration and cooperation has been underdeveloped to date. Certainly Alison Hawke's report on the Good Friday Agreement and the mechanisms that were built into that to promote collaboration and cooperation on the environment. Her report indicated that there was lots of scope for enhanced cooperation and significant benefits that could be gained from that. So my answer to is there a need is a yes. And I can follow that up with a report that we will publish as well on this website, an interim report. It's part of a longer research project just before Christmas that highlights some of those key issues. So does anybody else have any reflections on that issue?
Ciara, sorry, my camera is off because my connection is really poor and it keeps cutting me out.
Okay.
But the only other thing I would add to that is just to say that the other reason I think it's really important for more all-island collaboration is so that communities can learn and lesson share from each other, because there have been really successful campaigns all around the island of Ireland, and I find it really inspiring to hear about the stories of other communities who are successfully organising. And I think that can kind of empower and motivate others to kind of work on their own campaigns and encourage more people to get involved within the movement.
Absolutely, Clodagh. And I think Sarah O'Sullivan has made a comment in the Q&A as well about, how Niamh's story is very inspiring and has given loads of ideas. I think the idea of sharing case studies and storytelling are really important for the motivation and encouragement of those of us who are active. But she says particularly for giving ideas and learning from each other's experience. So Sarah's asking whether we could hear the panel's suggestions on where and how to have those conversations. Anybody on the panel? Niamh or Cormac?
For me, when it comes to those kinds of conversations, it's always at events or meetings, and not necessarily during, but before and after. Honestly, the most I've learned about kind of environmental issues and gotten the most helpful insights has been those informal conversations, or I suppose over a coffee or a pint afterwards. So I suppose it's finding wherever you're based in your local area, what groups are meeting up and when those events are happening, because having those connections with people, and I know you could do it online too, but it's kind of harder to make those personal connections when it's over a screen. But if possible, going to those events in person or online, and having those conversations, I find very helpful.
Yeah, we have a calendar of events on the EGNI website, which at some point will migrate over to the Manual of Environmental Justice. I think it's its more natural home. But yeah, so we have a calendar of events, so you can you can add events to that as well, and you can see, on the calendar what else is coming up in your area. So so that's another resource. So Niamh, have you any reflections on that?
Yeah, I think that's why the gathering works so well, because it brings people together to, obviously there's always a theme to the gathering, but the conversations, that you have with people informally is really important. And I also think going to visit campaigns, I've been up to Save Our Sperrins, the Greencastle People's Office, a few times, and just having that informal visit is essential to really truly learn and to meet the people who are behind the campaign. So visiting other campaigns, it doesn't only help that campaign feel that strength, but it also helps you continue to be motivated, and you learn so much. So yeah, just connecting people together.
Brilliant. Cormac?
Yeah, just a number of comments that they agree totally with. May have said, and other speakers said that meeting people, in terms of the network that was beginning to build up by people making contact on the issue of mining and the continued issue of prospecting licenses north and south to big mining companies. People were trying to find support or connections before they were, they had contacted any sort of organizations, and the links that were built up with between, say, the Sperrins and Cavan Monaghan and Inishowen and other places, Connemara, and and Leitrim, and obviously in Mayo and the Shell Sea campaign, that the support and the network and the information about campaigning, and it was and developing campaigns has been very important. And now the development of CAM, the All Ireland Network of Communities Against the Injustice of Mining, is building on that, and obviously linking in with the manual is important. The other issues I was going to mention was that in terms of building information, a database on experts that are interested and willing and that are on our side, because there are so many people who, and I can understand them too, they've been compromised because they're, if they want to progress their careers, earn a living or whatever, they realise they have to have an income coming into the household, jobs and family to support. And some of these companies, if you're a geologist, for example, that if you're looking to prospect your career, either it seems like either in the organizations like NIA or indeed in the private sector, that if you're seen to speak out, then that there's a big risk. So that building a network and building the strength and the confidence in people to know that there's another way, and that there are people, there's that the environment is important and really important, but that is it's having a network or having a database on that is so important. Obviously the whole fact that language has been compromised as well as policy by these companies, and that's where the policy campaign and getting people like me have elected and others that will, take the fight for the environment and for people to places that matter in a different way. But they're having, networks, information sources across border and locally, they're all so important, and there's such a big need right now for doing that, because as we all know, there's an urgency about acting. That I know that we in the Sperrins here in the campaign for gold mine know that the company is just the first one, and if they get their foot in the door and get their big mine set up, then there's several others waiting in the wings to come along as well. So it's a very important time, and it's good that there is the awareness that has developed to this level, and that there more and more people are putting their shoulder to the wheel to move things forward.
That's great, Cormac. Thank you so much. Now we're running out of time here, but I just wanted to end on a couple of comments that hopefully will address several of the remaining questions. Vanessa is asking what kind of people can submit resources to the website. This is an open access website, and we want resources from as many contributors as possible. Obviously, when a resource is submitted, we check through to make sure that everything's okay with it and there's nothing that shouldn't be uploaded to the website. So it does go through checks and within our own editorial teams. So that's the first thing. Secondly, if resources are uploaded and that they need to be developed further, that's something that we can look at. We're hoping to expand our role into doing that next year. And then finally, one other thing that I really wanted to raise was that every month there will be a newsletter connected to the website, the new manual website, and that will highlight new sort of resources, new experts that have come on board, and new groups that have maybe been mapped. But it also could serve the function which Christina Park in the Q&A has made a very useful suggestion about having alerts for urgent support needed for a particular campaign at a particular moment. So letting others on the network know so they can row in with signing petitions or giving support. Now, this is something that we've suggested could be, an expanded function of the website going forward. But in the meantime, the newsletter could serve that function, where if people feel like there is something that we should highlight in a newsletter that goes out to subscribers on the manual website, that is something that we could certainly facilitate. So thanks very much, Christine. I think that's a great idea, one we've been discussing ourselves, almost like a sort of a notice board for needs or for wanted ads and things like that. So I think that's certainly something we could look at going forward. So Thanks very much to everybody. Clodagh, if your connection's okay, do you want to close up? But from me, thank you very much to everybody and to all our panelists. And we're hoping to engage with everybody over the coming year and going forward about the new resource. Okay. Clodagh, have you anything to add?
Not at all, Ciara. Just to say thanks so much to everyone for tuning in. Please do send us any ideas you have for the manual, and thanks so much again to the Community Foundation of Ireland for resourcing this work. I really appreciate it, and we look forward to continuing to work with EJ and I going forward. Thanks so much, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well done, Caitlin, as well, for doing all the hard work on the background.
Thank you very much, EJ.
Thanks. See you later, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.